shadows grow thin. Shapes of strength in the fight within. Rhythms pounding like the earth's heartbeat. Warriors rise where the worlds compete. Step by step, your legends near. Every kick breaks through the fear. Wisdom flows in the sweat you gain. Buddha cast calls, ignite the flame.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into the dynamic, this ever-evolving world of combat sports.
Yeah.
And forget just brute force. This whole area is just a fascinating mix of, intricate strategy, really compelling personal stories, and honestly, some ambitious visions for what's next.
Absolutely. And our mission, well, what we're trying to do in this deep dive is unpack all the latest happenings. And we're going to focus particularly on this big push to bring Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu BJJ more into the mainstream spotlight.
Right.
We've pulled insights from, quite a few recent sources for you.
Yep.
Stuff from Sports Illustrated, MMA Fighting, MMA Mania, Siliv.com, Jits Magazine, and Timeless Jiu-Jitsu too.
So our goal here is really to pull out the most important bits of info, kind of give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. We're going beyond just the headlines, trying to connect the dots on how all this affects the athletes, where the sport's heading, and hopefully uncover some surprising facts, maybe even practical insights you can use in your own learning.
Okay, so let's jump right in then. The evolving landscape of major combat sports. Because UFC 317, wow, that was a real masterclass in contrast, wasn't it?
It really was.
I mean, the highlight reels, they often feature those, concussive knockouts like Ilia Topuria's just vicious pummeling of Charles Oliveira.
Yeah, that's the stuff that grabs you visually, gets the clicks. But what's so crucial to see is that, a lot of fights on that same card ended with submissions.
Right. The subs.
Exactly. The subs. They might not have that immediate, bloody impact, but the angles, the subtle joint stuff, it's just as effective. And honestly, for someone who knows what they're looking at, just as entertaining as the big strikes, it's a different kind of precision violence almost.
And talking about exciting fights, the high-stakes stuff just keeps rolling. We just heard the upcoming no-show UFC main event, September 13th in San Antonio. It's going to be featherweights, Diego Lopes versus Jean Silva.
Oh, Jean Silva. He's climbing fast, isn't he? Undefeated 5-0 in the UFC.
Yeah, and all finishes knockout or submission. Remember that nasty ninja choke at UFC 314 against Bryce Mitchell? That definitely got people talking.
For sure. And Lopes, he's a former title challenger, so he's looking to bounce back strong after a loss. That's a really compelling setup. Different styles, different points in their careers. Definitely one to watch.
Now, moving away from just the results for a sec, UFC 317 also had its share of controversy. There was that moment with Gregory Rodriguez RoboCop.
Right. Yes. The Hermanson knockout.
Exactly. He knocked out Jack Hermanson, Joker, but then landed that second punch when Hermanson was clearly, already going down. That stirred things up quite a bit, didn't it?
It absolutely did. And Rodriguez, he was pretty unapologetic afterwards. He basically said, I don't care what people think. I'm not stopping till the ref says stop. I just did my job. Yeah. And Herb Dean, the ref, experienced guy, just couldn't get in there fast enough. Hermanson needed a few minutes to come around. It highlights that brutal reality, doesn't it? Finish the job until you're pulled off. Yeah. That's the fighter mindset.
And speaking of rules and consequences, the UFC also made a pretty clear statement about professional accountability, right? With fighters missing weight.
Oh, yeah, that was immediate. Christopher Ewart got cut from the UFC 317 card. Yeah. He was, 10 pounds over?
A full 10 pounds. Yeah. Fight canceled, boom, cut.
It really shows the level of discipline needed. Missing weight isn't just a small mistake at that level. It can literally end your UFC run right there. And, talking about choices and careers ending, we also saw Cheyenne Vlismas, the Warrior Princess, announce her retirement. She's only 30, a UFC veteran. Seems kind of young to step away.
It does, but her reason really hits home, I think. She said after having her second kid, she felt like she couldn't give 100% into my training without giving less of myself to my babies. So yeah, she made that choice to prioritize being the parent she wished she always had. It's just a powerful reminder, isn't it? Behind all the fighting, these are people making really tough life choices. Sometimes family just has to come first.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, from the cage intensity to these huge personal decisions, it's clear combat sports are always shifting. But now, let's pivot. There's this massive strategic move happening that could really reshape things. Dana White's got a bold new vision.
Right, this is big. UFC CEO Dana White, he's pushing another new combat sports venture. TKO, the parent company, is unveiling a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu league.
So, like UFC, but for BJJ.
Effectively, yeah. That's the idea. Fighters in weight classes competing globally, but all on the ground. It's designed for, elite black belts who want top competition, but maybe don't want the punches and kicks anymore.
It kind of feels like it's come full circle, doesn't it? Because the sources say White and the Fertitta brothers originally bought the UFC because they got totally hooked on jiu-jitsu themselves.
Exactly. They realized the fighters weren't just, tough guys. A lot of them were smart, went to college, good people.
And their BJJ trainer, John Lewis, he was key.
Oh, 100% central, yeah. He's the one who introduced them to guys like Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, and that eventually led to White thinking, hey, maybe we should buy the UFC. When the old owner was struggling, it literally started with that BJJ passion.
Okay, so if that's the origin, the huge question is, how do you sell this? Two people grappling, all those subtle moves. It's not a knockout.
Yeah.
White himself apparently thought it'd take like 100 years for people to jiu-jitsu back in the early UFC days.
Huh, yeah.
So has he changed his mind? What's the plan to make it work this time?
Well, he gives a ton of credit to Joe Rogan. Said Rogan was the perfect guy to commentate back then because Rogan was apparently great at educating people before the maneuver would happen, and that helped BJJ just take off like wildfire.
Ah, the explanation part.
Exactly. And now White's confidence seems to come from this very Dana White kind of place.
Yeah.
He basically says if he can get people watching slapping, power slap,
Right.
then he will get people interested in watching jiu-jitsu. It's provocative, but it's his strategy, right? Build an audience, maybe start with something simpler, then introduce the complexity. It's a long game. He did it with UFC.
And it's not just an idea. They're actually building it out. There's structure, some innovation plan. They already put out an 8-episode YouTube series,
Yeah.
UFC BJJ Road to the Title.
Yeah, and the first live event was during International Fight Week in Vegas.
So how do they make grappling more viewer-friendly? You mentioned innovation.
Right. Well, a key thing is the bowl. This concept, apparently from Claudia Gadella, it's designed to stop fighters just rolling off the flat mats. You know how that happens in tournaments? Stoppages, restarts?
Yeah.
It breaks the flow.
Oh, yeah, constantly.
So this bowl should keep the action contained. And they've got a new rule set, 3 5-minute rounds, a 10-point scoring system, and judges pick a winner if no sub.
Okay, clear structure.
Yeah, rankings, world champions, the whole UFC model, basically. White seems confident that with the right camera work, slow-mo replays, they can really highlight the technique and make it exciting for viewers.
And what about the money side for the athletes? That sounds like a big deal. 6-figure contracts.
That's what they're saying, yeah, for exclusively signed athletes. And White is really eyeing a potential television deal. He sees that as the key that unlocks a lot of doors, creating real opportunity.
But he's realistic about the timeline.
Oh, yeah. This is a build over the next 5, 10, 15 years. It's not going to blow up overnight. And he kind of acknowledges others have tried BJJ leagues, but adds that classic White touch. When the UFC gets involved, the tide rises for everybody.
Interesting. So, okay, what does this potentially mean for the athletes themselves, the ones who've poured their lives into BJJ?
Well, it could be huge. A game changer for many. And look no further than Claudia Gadella, right?
The one who suggested the bowl idea.
Exactly. Former UFC fighter. Now she's the senior director of jiu-jitsu strategy and development, helping build this league. Her story is just incredible. Grew up in poverty, small town near the Amazon.
Wow. And jiu-jitsu was her way out.
It really was. She saw it as a tool to change her life. Get this. At 15, she hitchhiked 4 hours to find the best gym around. Lived there for 3 years, selling sandwiches on the beach to pay for training.
Selling sandwiches. That's unbelievable dedication.
It just shows you the power of this stuff, right? The drive it can instill. She realized BJJ didn't have huge opportunities back then, so she switched to MMA, fought her way to the UFC, got a title shot, coached the Ultimate Fighter.
And now she's a UFC executive building this league.
Exactly. From selling sandwiches to driving this whole initiative, it perfectly captures the grit, the perseverance, and what happens when that talent finally meets real opportunity.
That's an amazing story. And it's not just about, escaping poverty or pro careers. it's also about empowering young people, isn't it? Like this kid, Lenny Rafano,
Yeah.
16 years old.
Yeah, from Staten Island. Just passed his first instructor test at Tiger Schulman's martial arts. 16.
That's impressive. Teaching already.
He started MMA 4 years ago, calls it life-changing. Just won double gold medals Jiu-Jitsu and MMA at a big Tiger Schulman's event.
So what's his take on it all?
Well, what's cool is his philosophy. He's a red belt, trains daily, talks about hard work, self-defense, but also physical and mental wellness. He actually hopes martial arts basics become part of PE class in schools.
Really? That's quite mature for 16.
Yeah, stressing health for young people. He says MMA built his confidence, but also keeps him humble. Made him realize, you're not indestructible.
That balance again. Strength and humility.
And he's got a good mentor, his sensei Nick Pace, who fought in the UFC.
Ah, okay. That lineage matters. Which kind of brings us back to the roots, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thinking about Helio Gracie.
Absolutely. The founder himself, there's that rare footage Helio Gracie shared, Helio, nearly 80 years old.
Still rolling?
Still rolling with his grandkids, letting them throw him, submit him. It's amazing.
It really shows the legacy, the longevity. I mean, think about his sons. Royce in the early UFC, Rickson undefeated in MMA, Royler with all the grappling titles.
That footage is more than just family training. It's like the perfect ad for how long you can stay engaged with jiu-jitsu, physically and mentally, into your late 70s, still active. That's incredible.
It really is. So you see how BJJ impacts lives across generations, different situations, transforming people physically, mentally. But it's not just physical, right? There's another layer.
Exactly. Let's shift focus slightly because there's this powerful, often kind of overlooked aspect of BJJ and really learning anything. Most people think improvement means doing more classes, more reps, more rolling.
You just put the hours in.
Right. But there's this underrated tool for speeding up learning. Simply asking better questions.
Asking better questions. How does that work? It's not just about volume, but engagement.
Precisely. It's about specificity. If you ask vague stuff like, why doesn't this work? You get vague answers. But if you ask, say, what am I missing when my guard pass fails because they use their outside leg? Bam, you're pinpointing the issue.
Okay, I see. It forces clarity.
It moves you past just repeating things into actually understanding them.
And you're saying it's not just for coaches. You can do this during training.
Absolutely. You should. Ask your training partners right in the middle of a roll sometimes. Hey, what felt wrong when I tried that pass? Or what did you see coming there? You get that real-time feedback, details you'd otherwise miss.
Be present. Be curious.
Yeah, make every roll a chance to learn something specific.
So maybe keep a running list of questions, things that pop up in class or during open mat.
That's a fantastic habit. It really makes you a student of the art. You stop being passive, you know. You start taking ownership of your own development.
Yeah.
It just reinforces that jiu-jitsu is super intellectual, not just physical. The really great grapplers, they aren't just tough. They're curious, they study, they ask smart questions. That's why they keep getting better year after year. Doesn't matter how old they are.
Wow. Well, we've definitely covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. From the drama and high stakes in the UFC, Dana White's huge vision for BJJ, to those really personal stories, Claudia Gadelha, Lenny Rafano, and then digging into the mental side, the learning aspect.
And the common thread through all of it, really, is that these principles, resilience, innovating, thinking strategically, that continuous learning mindset, they're not just for fighters. They apply everywhere.
Totally. They're vital in pretty much any pursuit you can think of.
Definitely.
So maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. We heard about Helio Gracie, still practicing BJJ actively near 80. We heard about Lenny Rafano, teaching it at 16.
Yeah, quite the contrast.
So how might embracing that student-of-the-art mindset in whatever you do, constantly questioning, learning, adapting, how might that not just make you better at your skills, but actually extend your vitality, your impact? I mean, maybe for decades, longer than you'd normally expect. Something to think about.
Cauterizing now